Did you think we could just keep spending money, producing nothing, and everything would be okay? Perhaps the biggest experiment in some kind of guaranteed income we've seen to date has proven it to be a widespread failure. The consumer price index is at 5%, growing at the fastest pace since summer of 2008. And we know what happened back then, didn't we? This does not bode well. And many people are yelling Bidenflation. That's right. Joe Biden's inflation crisis has made it here. And it's not just high prices. The whole thing, which we've discussed ad nauseum on this channel, seems to only be getting worse. And I have the latest updates for you. Consumer prices jumped up to 5%. It's worse than it was last month. It's worse than Wall Street had predicted. The prices for goods are skyrocketing. And I'm talking with people. We're trying to build and expand this business. And they say, I'm sorry, the cost of raw materials is just too high. We can't do the job. Starbucks, the latest to report widespread shortages of lids, of cups, of necessary materials. Before this news broke, what did I tell you a few days ago or last week? I had someone send me a photo saying this is at a local Starbucks. They're out of almost everything. What did I tell you last month or only a few weeks ago? We're seeing these local reports of chicken shortages and beef shortages. Now what's happening? It's finally starting to reach the national level. Maybe they didn't want to report it too soon. I don't know. They're saying, don't worry, it's a good sign. Demand is incredibly high. That's great for the economy. The problem is people aren't working. They're being paid not to work. The demand is there. The supply is not coming back. And what do we get from these forums? Well, the left just saying it's because they're not paying enough. They need to pay the higher salaries. What's a higher salary? $30 an hour? Okay, you're right, left, you're right. I give you that one. If the fast food companies just paid better, people would come work. Well, apparently these sign-on bonuses aren't working. Maybe they just need to pay $30 an hour. Okay. Welcome to hyperinflation. You think the cost of goods going up right now is bad at 5%? What do you think's going to happen when they're forced to double wage costs? First of all, these businesses can't just do that. They can't just literally say, we're going to pay everyone double. Plus, of course, the government just prints way more money to bail out more businesses to cover the costs of wages when people don't want to work. Do you see what's happening? At the same time, we're hearing that people can't even buy houses. The wealthy are snatching them up. Bill Gates, the largest private farm owner in the country. Land is an excellent investment. So maybe they will jack up the wages to $30 an hour to compete with unemployment, which is just about $16 an hour. People will say, okay, I'll take double. You know, the problem is to overcome free money. That's a hard sell. I mean, think about it. You go to someone and say, we're going to give you $16 an hour, unemployment guaranteed, and you don't got to work. Or $30 an hour if you do. A lot of people are going to say, my time is invaluable. There's no amount of money that you're going to be able to buy my time. Now, it's not really true. I think if they said maybe 50 or $60 an hour, a lot of people would be like, ooh, I'm down for that. I'll go work. But think about it. If you don't have to, why would you? I think about it this way. You ever see those videos where the lion is like licking the dog or whatever, or the chicken walks around the lion and the lion doesn't care to kill it? Why? Well, the lion's well fed. The lion doesn't need to work. It doesn't need to get into a fight and risk itself. So why would it even for a meal? It's fat and happy. If you're giving people $16 an hour and it's covering the basic goods most people need, they're not stressing for things they can't buy. PlayStations are out of stock. You can't go to the places you once loved. So what do you need the extra money for? You won't get it. And thus, hyperinflation is on the way. The cost of houses is going to start skyrocketing because the cost of materials, and it's already skyrocketing because firms like BlackRock are buying up homes for 50% above market, above asking price. I hope you're ready for this. I hope I'm wrong. But last month when we talked about this, consumer price index was 4.4 or around there. It's happening faster than it did in '08. I don't know what to tell you. Man, I'll tell you what I'm doing. Bitcoin, I guess. Let's read the news and see what's happening with Bidenflation and these shortages and how Biden is making it worse. You want to know how he made it worse? Shutting down Keystone, 48,000 jobs. Let's talk about how it's getting worse. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to support my work. Now, I'll say in the context of this, Maybe y'all should be figuring out some financial strategies for yourselves. But if you do think the work I'm doing is important, becoming a member helps us expand this operation. The newsroom is coming up in about a week or two. It will be particularly rudimentary to start. We're only going to have a few employees, but we are going to be investing heavily into this. And it's with your support as members at timcast.com that we will be able to do this. These articles will be free and ad supported, but we will have members only content as well. And we do have the members only section of the Timcast IRL podcast, which is available to members right now. Please consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. But the best thing you can do, take the URL to this video or click the share button. Share it everywhere you can. If everybody shared this video, I would be bigger than CNN overnight. If you think, maybe you don't like me, but if you like me more than CNN, you can do this, and it really helps out. Or at the very least, please enjoy the free ad-supported content, and let's see what's happening in the market. CNBC reports, headline, consumer prices rose 5% year over year in May, the fastest pace since August 2008, and higher than Wall Street expectations. The 3.8% rise in the core inflation rate, which excludes food and energy prices, was the sharpest increase in nearly 3 decades. Notice how they're saying food and energy has been removed. You know why? What do you think core inflation would be at if they included fuel and food prices? It'd be a lot higher. I mean, maybe 5. Max Kaiser tells me he thinks it's closer to 10. They're not going to tell us the truth because it would cause serious impacts on Social Security payments and loans and mortgages and all that stuff. And so they're just pretending like it ain't that bad. But it's bad. Initial jobless claims totaled 376,000, a touch higher than the estimate. They say the Consumer Price Index, which represents a basket including food, energy, groceries, housing costs, and sales across a spectrum of goods, rose 5% from a year earlier. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been expecting a gain of about 4.7. The reading represented the biggest CPI gain since the 5.3% increase in August of 2008, just before the financial crisis sent the U.S. spiraling into the worst recession since the Great Depression. This is all very negative, and it's hard to know exactly what's happening. There are many sources you can pull up that they say the economy is set to skyrocket. Things are going to get better than ever. Maybe that's true. It's hard to know for sure. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. Maybe it's bad. Maybe you should watch other channels and not just mine. This is why I always say, check out, other shows. Hey, Crystal and Cigar just launched Breaking Points. They're doing really, really well, and they're awesome people. It's a great show. You don't only want to be watching my channel. Because maybe, and probably, I've got blind spots. But I think I'm right. Of course I do. I mean, I wouldn't say it if I didn't think I was, but I think I'm right. Why? Well, these articles that are coming up and saying everything's better than ever. I'm like, dude, the consumer prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is good. It means your wages will go up. I mean, yeah, what are you, a child? Wages going up is meaningless if prices are going up faster. Am I going to get a 5% raise? No. Okay, well, everything's up 5% or more. It's not just about one single good. It's fuel, it's electricity, it's food. You like bacon? Bacon's up, like 14% this month, and it was like 22% up last month. In fact, we went to the store, couldn't find any bacon. Lucky for us, we live by a bunch of farms. Easily found bacon. And, look, I put a bunch of bacon in the deep freezer months ago, so we're good. I'm paying attention to them bacon prices. I'm half kidding. But I think these shortages are serious. Beef prices are skyrocketing. It was hard for us to get brisket. Chicken shortages. We went to the store the other day, and what did they say? Limit 2 per customer for chicken due to shortages. Why? What were they saying? It was because of the chicken sandwich wars. Nah, that can't be real. It's the stupidest thing I ever heard. CNBC goes on to say, though the inflation readings are well above anything we've seen since 08-09, the Federal Reserve has been largely dismissive of the numbers. Central bank officials believe the current rise is due to temporary factors that will abate as the year goes on and look higher because of comparisons to the year ago period, when much of the economic activity remained restricted due to pandemic precautions. Okay, let's calm down a little bit. Okay, maybe that's true. All right. People are saying it's the Biden inflation crisis. Biden inflation, it's very funny. I think so. I mean, the cost of bullets has not gone down. It's been going up. And that's like a core good for a lot of people. You live out in the middle of nowhere. People go hunting, they go targeting. This is just one example. Okay, maybe it's not the best example. We can take a look at other goods that are skyrocketing. I hope that it just passes over and it really is inflated numbers. I mean, we've not had a pandemic lockdown like this, at least in my lifetime. So, or I think maybe not even like 100 years. So, okay, maybe they're right. But maybe they're trying to abate panic. If they came out right now and were saying definitively like inflation's going to hit everyone hard, their savings will be decimated, what would people do? Well, they'd panic spend. And if they did, that would cause inflation to go faster. This is what we saw in 2008. They kept saying the market is better than ever. Ignore the signs, invest, invest, invest. And the market went. So, yeah, many of us weren't old enough to remember the market crash, or we were young and weren't particularly affected by it. And many leftists who are in their 20s today barely remember it. They were small children if they were affected by it at all. So, of course, they're going to keep petitioning for more mass spending, not realizing the economy is in flames and crumbling to the ground. Check this out. We got this chart here they put up on the Daily Mail. Inflation from May 2020 to May 2021. Bacon is up 19%. Bananas 2%. Bread 7%. Coffee 2%. Milk 9%. Oranges 9%. Gasoline 56%. 56. And you know what happens next? Electricity is up 4%. What happens when gas goes up? Literally everything else goes up. Because if you want to drive a car to go to work or deliver goods, that cost is going to hit you. So here's what happens. Some dude works at McDonald's and he's like, you know what, they're paying me $18 an hour. I'll accept that even though unemployment would pay more. Or maybe this person lives in one of these states where they've terminated those federal benefits. So this guy's working and he's making, $18 an hour. And then the gas prices skyrocket. Now to get to work, it's costing him 56% more on average. Well, eventually he's going to go to his boss and say, boss, it's costing me just like $5 to get here. Okay, maybe if that's well, depending on how far away he lives, he could live 20, 30 miles away and get 20, 30 miles to the gallon. If it's city miles, if you live in New York, yeah, that's brutal. He might say, I need an extra $1 an hour. And then the boss says, man, we got to factor in, what was that, like a 5% wage increase for everybody now to cover these costs? 56% increase in gas depends on how much gas he needs to get to and from work. But it's more than that. What if someone's a delivery driver? Uber. Now you're in a city and you got to get from the airport to your hotel. Well, 56% higher cost because of fuel surcharge, right? Then you're going to say, I'm spending more on fuel. I need more money. It will hit literally everything. But you need to understand it's not just about your pocketbook. It's not just about your savings. It's about how it impacts the availability for goods and the feasibility of selling things. The Wall Street Journal reports Starbucks faces shortages of cups, syrup, and as eased COVID-19 boosts sales. Coffee company says lack of supplies, including oat milk, are temporary and vary by store and market. I hope that's what it is. Could be something else. It could be that people aren't working and producing these things, so not enough are getting made. And then when these companies say, we're looking to hire someone to make cups. These people are like, I'm getting paid $16 an hour not to work, so I'm chilling. Nobody wants to make the cups. Starbucks doesn't have the cups. Starbucks can't sell. They can't expand. Everything stops. You can only grow as fast as there is actual supply and demand. So if people aren't working, this is what you get. If the gas prices go up, this is what you'll get. Maybe, I'm going to say this. Maybe I'm being pessimistic. Maybe everything's going to be all right. Maybe, I put some money in Bitcoin. Maybe inflation. It is here. Inflation is happening. But inflation doesn't necessarily mean that everything just falls apart. If Biden stops his unemployment payments, people go back to work, maybe the prices for everything will go up. Your wages will go up with it, and many people won't notice all that much. It does mean the savings of the working class are being decimated, though, and that's still a very serious problem. The Wall Street Journal says, cake pops, cup stoppers, and mocha flavoring are among the items that have run out in places at times, some baristas said. The company is pausing production on several lower sales items to focus on higher selling ones. One person familiar with those plans said. A Starbucks spokeswoman said shortages of some items are temporary and vary by store and market. The company has temporarily removed from its app oat milk and beverages made with dairy substitute until it restocks its inventory. Well, bad news for the vegans, I suppose. Signs of the COVID-19 pandemic are disappearing across the U.S. as new cases fall and states remove restrictions on businesses and public gatherings. As the economy roars back to life, many businesses have run short on labor and the goods they need to serve customers eager to return to restaurants and concert halls. Supply chain problems have contributed to shortages of products from wood pulp to pallets. Costs are ticking up as a result. Ketchup packets and frying oil are among other supplies that have fallen into scarcity in recent months. Yeah, demand is there. They keep saying demand is fantastic. It shows that as the economy is reopened, demand is roaring back to life. Demand is artificially high. They're paying people not to work. It's ending in many states. I think it's maybe like 28 states so far have cut this off. Many people still aren't returning to work. They've embraced van life, but we'll see. Maybe it's all just one inadvertent great reset. How about that? But if people are being given money, there will be demand. Those people are hungry. But they're being given money, so they're not working, so thus there's no supply. Universal basic income does not work. Guaranteed income does not work. You are fabricating demand without supply. It eventually stagnates. What happens then? Some guy's going to walk into a burger joint that has very few burgers because nobody's making beef. And he's going to be like, I'll give you $5 for that burger. And the guy goes, I'll give you 6, I'll give you 7, I'll give you 8, I'll give you 9. And they're going to fight. They're going to bid each other for trying to get this food. Now, I get it. Most of these stores are first come, first serve. You don't auction on burgers at restaurants, but you get the point. It'll affect other areas of the economy. Wall Street Journal says, for restaurants, some chains and cafes that do much of their business to go have kept dining rooms closed to avoid overwhelming staff. Some have asked customers to adapt to not having enough ketchup or other condiments. Starbucks employees said they are serving drinks in different cup sizes when the proper ones aren't available. Some customers have grumbled when their preferred items were out of stock. Some of those employees said, quote, due to current supply shortages, some of your favorites may be temporarily out of stock. Starbucks wrote to its app users earlier this week. We're sorry for the inconvenience. It is a great reset. Now, you can call it intentional or otherwise, but the point is there is a great reset happening. Let's say every day you wake up, you get a cup of coffee, and you like getting the venti or you like getting the big one, right? That's venti, right? I don't know, whatever, Starbucks. Well, now you can't. Now you show up and you ain't getting it. Eventually, you have a new routine develop. No more cupcakes, no more cake pops, no more extra large coffees. They say, sorry, we only have talls, which means small, I guess, whatever. Starbucks, you're crazy. And maybe they say, okay, we only have the smallest version. So what do? Fine, I'll take that, I guess. Now you're cutting out the coffee. Now you're spending less. Now you're drinking less Starbucks. Maybe you come in and say, I only do mocha. And they say, we don't have any mocha. And you say, okay, I'll leave. What happens after a month? They say 28 days creates a routine, creates a habit. People are cutting these habits. This is changing human behavior. And it ain't all bad. I mean, if it's intentional and there's despots dictating what people can do, I think that's nightmarish and dystopian. If people are improving their lives and just not eating cake pops, it's probably a good thing because I don't think cake pops are all that good for you. But you see my point. Either way, it's not just about what's happening in the economy. I can only tell you this. I hope you are paying attention to what the Biden administration is doing, how it is negatively impacting the economy, and what that means for you. We can't always be in a golden age, I suppose, the wonderful roller coaster that was Donald Trump's economy. I don't mean that in terms of up and down. I mean like we were like yelling and having a good time. Well, all good things come to an end. It's like that story. You know that story where it was like the king and he says to this blacksmith, he's like, I want you to make me something that will make me happy when I'm sad and sad when I'm happy. Thinking it couldn't be done. And the guy comes back and he has it's like a bracelet or something and it says on it, this too shall pass. And it's a statement that means when you're in your happiest moment, you'll look down and see that message reminding you that the good times will come to an end. And it's sad. And in your darkest hour, you'll look at that and it says this too shall pass. And it reminds you that your hard times, you will overcome them. It'll make you happy when you're sad and sad when you're happy. That's right. For all the good that Donald Trump brought, eventually, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction, I suppose. And again, not just the economy. Insider reports a mega drought in California is expected to lead to water shortages for production of everything from avocados to almonds and could cause prices to rise. Not our avocados. How will us millennials have our avocado toast? Hey, welcome to this brave new world. Yeah, California's in a drought. So it's not just about Joe Biden. I think it's a lot about Joe Biden, but a drought's a drought. What do? Leave the area, stop eating imported avocados, start focusing on yourself. I moved out of the big city. We got some chickens. We got a little farm going on. We got a bunch of cucumbers popping up. Not enough to survive on our own. We don't have enough farmland for that. But we're taking some responsibility for ourselves and we'll be eating some of our own vegetables and crops for some time. We're going to have a whole bunch. It's going to be fantastic. We got jalapenos and basil and tomatoes. Yeah, so we're growing this stuff. Plus the chickens, they're going to be laying eggs. In the winter, I think you got to do the sun lamps to make sure they keep laying eggs. But, that's the plan. And then we'll make more chickens because it's this amazing thing about science. You take a boy chicken and a girl chicken, you put them in a room, boom, more chickens, just like that. And they eat the bugs. It's wonderful. It's about time we started being more responsible. Now, I think most conservatives probably fine because you recognize a lot of this. I'd be willing to bet a lot of rural conservatives know how to chop wood and probably do for fires. People in the cities, you're going to live in the pot and you're going to eat the bugs. This is why they're saying eat cicadas, because there is a shortage here and it is only going to get worse. Insider reports June 1st. Restaurants are hiking prices because of labor shortages, higher wages, and rising costs of staple foods. One owner said he was paying 50% more for ribs than normal and double for cooking oil. We got this from Eat This, Not That. 5 shortages affecting fast food chains right now. They say the pandemic was wreaking havoc. Chicken wings, they're gone. Ketchup packets, they're gone. Bubble tea. Us millennials got to have our boba. Nah, I mean, I haven't had boba in a minute, but I do like boba. Oat milk. That one's crazy to me. You know, it's really easy to make oat milk. You take oats. You maybe put a little bit of cinnamon all over it, maybe some allspice or something. You put it in a cloth, like a cheesecloth, and then you run, no, I'm sorry. You blend it with water, nice and blended, and then pour it through the cheesecloth, filtering out the solid parts, and you get oat milk. We've made some before. It's not hard to do, but shortages of oat milk, Starbucks reporting, and staff. That's a scary one. If you don't make stuff, there's no stuff to buy. That's where we're headed. Now, do you think Joe Biden is helping to solve this problem? I kind of don't think so. Joe Biden, they shut down the Keystone pipeline and now 48,000 Americans will lose their jobs. Well, that's what Trump is saying, but it's true. A lot of people have already lost their jobs and many more will lose their jobs. And like I said, if you don't make stuff, there is no stuff. Sometimes the stuff you make or transport or you make the thing that transports the oil is used to bring the fuel to the production lines to make more stuff. I'm not a big fan of stuff. I'm not. I've always been particularly minimalist. That's why I'm always like, I'll be happy in a van down by the river just fishing. A lot of stuff that I have now is mostly for expanding the business and building culture and trying to push back on the extremism from the far left. But, 48,000 people who can't make stuff won't have the resources to buy other stuff. The economy, in my opinion, is not going to rebound. I mean, a little bit maybe in certain areas, but what did we see last month? It was worse than it's ever been. Early on, they were like, the economy is roaring back to life, and there were a lot of new jobs created. It was great. But job openings are going up and up and up. Maybe it's not bad news. Maybe what's really happening is that businesses are coming back, and so they haven't been able to hire anybody. And I think, the $300 unemployment thing won't last forever. Even if we pull out of this tailspin, which I think is likely, I don't think that the world is going to end or anything, there will be massive inflation. So I guess my point in all this is saying your savings will get decimated. I guess it's good news if you got a mortgage or a loan on a car because the value of that loan will evaporate essentially. If you're getting paid $30 an hour because they have to pay you double what they paid you before, your $10,000 loan's effectively worth $5,000. You know how that works, right? It's inflation. If the loans become devalued and your savings become devalued, but if your wages go up, then you're earning the same amount of buying power for every hour of labor you engage in. 48,000 Americans are going to lose their jobs over the Keystone Pipeline, so saith Trump. I think it's probably going to be a large amount of people. That's going to be bad for the economy. It will have a ripple effect. The Biden administration is not helping things. Check this out. We got this one. Harris blames climate change for border crisis in response to Guatemalan president blaming Biden administration. We also have, I'll give credit to Kamala Harris. She came out and said, don't come to the border. That's good. But what the policies being enacted by the Biden administration are creating a pull factor. So here you go. What do you think happens when 48,000 people lose their jobs and then the Biden administration brings in tens of thousands more refugees? I think it was like 170,000 in like March or something, or I don't know. Maybe it's high. But when they're bringing in tens of thousands of people who are looking for work at a time when Biden is crushing jobs, the working class are getting beaten to a pulp. Biden says, we're not going to tax people who make less than 400K. And these 20-year-olds, these DSA people are like, yay, tax the rich. And I'm like, hey, they're printing money like crazy. They're taxing you. You just can't see it. Pay attention. Now they're too young. They don't understand inflation. I mean, back when I was growing up, you could buy a Three Musketeers bar for 40 cents. That's right. Remember those days? Now it's like $1.29. A 300% increase in the cost of a candy bar. Yeah, I used to go in and I'd be like, it was like a penny for a Swedish fish. So you'd be like, you give them $1 and they give you this big bag of Sour Patch Kids or Swedish fish. And the price is going up. It's becoming more and more expensive, as it always does. I mean, I think the U.S. dollar's lost like 99% of its value over the past 100 years. Inflation exists. This time around, it's going to be fast. And it's faster than it happened before the Great Recession. So the economy may roar back. We're probably going to take a very serious hit. It could be that the artificial recession, the shutting down of all those businesses was that hit. Maybe we're actually pulling out of this. But all of that backup, that from last year, it's going to burst out of that pipe. All that nasty sludge that was jamming everything up. And you are going to see prices heavily hit by this. Now, I'll tell you one more bit. We got one more here. Real estate. Bloomberg Businessweek says, yes, real estate prices are soaring, and no, it's not a bubble. Stricter lending standards have reduced risk in the market. I'm going to let you in on some personal news. You may have seen me tweet about it. I was just denied for a small home loan. A small single family home, nothing particularly big, not in a big city, not the most expensive house, fairly average. I said, no. They said, no, we're not going to loan to you. And I was kind of confused because I'm like, I'm not trying to, a lot of people they say it's bragging or whatever. It's like, no, my business is doing really well. I don't need a loan. I just think it's irresponsible to not get one. I think you should, you want to pay it off on time. You want to pay as much as you can, as early as you can, but you don't just, I think a loan made sense. Long story short, they said no. I find that very weird. And a lot of people I know were like, bro, like you run a very successful company. Like, shouldn't they be lending to you? And I'm like, it's not just about the denial. I mean, okay, fine. No one owes me a loan. But it was like months of back and forth with different agents coming in, coming out, demanding the same paperwork over and over again. And people were saying, I get people on Twitter saying, oh, Tim, that's normal. No, don't worry about it. And I'm like, dude, I've gone through the mortgage process a couple times before. I know how it works. This is not normal. And I don't want to get into very private details on what happened, what's happening now, but something weird is happening. I just got off the phone, had a long conversation. Phone numbers aren't working. Something weird is happening. And I look at all these stories and they're saying like stricter lending standards. Sure. But it really does feel like, I'll just tell you my opinion. It really does feel like they were trying to stop us from buying property. Like when they were emailing and saying all these things, they were doing everything in their power to make sure I did not buy. Meanwhile, these other big firms are buying up like crazy. And what happens when you Google search this stuff? Here's a story from Vox. Is there a housing bubble? Houses are getting more and more expensive. There's a simple fix for that. Okay. They're not saying there is one. And the saying goes, if a headline asks a question, the answer is often no. Bloomberg already said there's no bubble. But there are a bunch of stories where they're like, millennials regret buying houses. I saw this one from Business Insider. It's like, millennials were surveyed and they regretted having to buy their house. A large portion said the maintenance was too high. I'm like, who do you think pays that? You pay it no matter what. I mean, stop and think. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. An article came out telling millennials not to buy houses. Okay, it wasn't telling them not to buy. It was saying they regret it, which is going to signal to a lot of millennials maybe it's not a smart thing to do. Owning property is a very smart thing to do. If you're renting and there's maintenance costs, yeah, the landlord pays for it, but it comes out of your rent. When you rent, you pay less per month. Think about it. Your landlord's going to charge you a premium. So if the mortgage is, $1,500, you're going to be paying $1,700, $1,800, $1,900, or maybe $2,000. Let's say you have rent and it's $2,000 a month and the mortgage is $1,500. The $500 per month goes into an account. And then when repairs are needed, the landlord pays for them. What do you think would happen if you bought the house outright and you saved that $500 a month? You wouldn't be putting money in the pocket of a landlord. Yet more and more stories are coming up that seem to discourage people from owning property at a time when big investment firms are buying everything up over market. And then I get this response. They're not going to lend to me to buy a house. Okay, full disclosure, I don't need them. I'm doing fairly well. I don't want to waste money in that regard, though. I want to focus these investments in hiring news staff. So maybe, I don't know. It just made more sense to have the mortgage and pay it slowly over time, which is good news for the bank. But I could use my cash in the immediate to hire journalists. I'd rather do that. But you know what I thought? Speaking to a lot of people, they were like, it sounds like they're trying to stop you. And I'm like, it's really weird right now. But what it seems like is, I'll put it this way. If lending is getting more strict and it's harder and harder for the middle class to buy, and media is saying, oh, it's dangerous, it's a bubble, BlackRock and these other firms that are competing with the middle class for these houses are paying 50% over asking to win the bidding war. What would happen if the lenders stopped lending to middle class people who could clearly afford it? Well, then BlackRock wouldn't have to pay more than asking. They wouldn't compete with anybody. If Joe Schmo doesn't have $300,000 to buy a house, he goes to a bank and he says, I do have $30,000 saved up for a 10% down payment or for a 5% down payment plus closing costs. Then the bank says, okay, here's our offer. BlackRock counters. What happens if the bank just says, we're not going to lend to you? Sorry. Then BlackRock walks in and buys it up. No problem, no competition. The Great Reset, perhaps? I don't know. Consumer prices are skyrocketing, man. The Biden inflation crisis is here. And it may precipitate a hard fall. I can't tell you what's going to happen. Maybe things improve. Certainly seems like the dollar is a bad investment, in my opinion. I can't give you financial advice. But with all these people buying up land, I wonder why. Maybe land is the best investment. Something to put money in, is going to go up in value. Here's the saying, they're not making any more of it. So it will only go up if these firms own all of it. It'll be worth it for them. And then what happens to us? Feudalism. Feudalism returns. The lords, these big investment firms, will own the land, and they'll say in exchange for work, we'll let you live on the land. You'll be a vassal. Seriously. Millennials, you got to buy houses. Figure it out. I know it's hard. This is scary stuff. I guess we'll see how it plays out, but welcome to Biden Inflation. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.